Yesterday and here today, not forgetting the Dalmahoy Hotel, which is absolutely fantastic. The staff there have been great. I've got a lovely room. I've been watching the golf outside, and they gave me a chess set on the coffee table. It was a really big one, so I had a game. I like to play solo chess every now and again, and so it improves your technique, and but I lost again, and I'd never won at that. And I saw the golf, and I used to play golf for a while. I never was any good at it. Well, it's sporadically good. I was actually spectacular at times, but also disastrous. I remember a game at Henley Golf Course, which is pretty tricky, with some friends of mine and the greenkeeper who was playing off scratch. My friends were playing off a very low handicap. What would you like, Ian? Well, I'll take 28 if you'll give it to me as a handicap. And they looked a bit puzzled, and my friend, that's about right. So I parred the first 4 holes, which was miraculous. They're very stiff, and they're looking at me as, I think you're called a bandit if you do that sort of thing, and claim a handicap like that. But I ended up with 110, which is disastrous, and the professional said, I need to look at what's going wrong there, so let's go on the driving range and hit a few balls, which he walked around me, and then he said, okay, I got it. So we went to the bar and had a drink before lunch. He said, I've never seen anything like it. He said, your stance, he said, is really good. He said, your grip is perfect. He said, your swing is sublime. He said, but then you're so erratic, and I know why now, because when you reach the top of your backswing, you close your eyes. And that's when I swing the ball, and of course, you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to... Anyway, my daddy was from Scotland, and I couldn't understand a single word he said to me until I was a man. Now, that's half true. I could understand him literally. He had a very gruff voice and was very assertive, or so it sounded, as Glaswegian too. And, but he was very enigmatic, and a lot of the things, I didn't find out the truth until much later in life. And I remember, for example, we used to go to a football once a fortnight to watch the home games, and stand at the bus stop in the winter time. It's cold, I'd be stamping my feet, saying, the bus is late, Dad. He said, yeah, wait. And he'd say, okay, are you ready? The bus will appear around the corner. Count backwards with me. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Man, there it was. It came around the corner, this big red bus. How'd you do that, Dad? How did you know? He said, it's one of those things you'll know when you grow up. So I wanted to be an adult immediately and understand the mystery of this prescience. And so it happened every fortnight. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, bang, the bus came around the corner. And it was a mystery. Many years later, after Dad was dead, I had a chance to, or a reason to be at the bus stop again. I was visiting friends back in Hounslow. And I looked up, and in the distance, I could see over the roof of the building in the corner, the top of a big red bus, just a little thin sliver. And it came around the corner. And of course, I understood then what he meant by when you grow up. It wasn't anything about being an adult, it was just about changing my perspective in life on being able to see the bus before it came. So that's one of those things that stayed with me. Dad, thank you. I've got some notes here. I got this jacket, by the way, while I'm looking. It's been in a wardrobe for about 45 years, and I now know why it stayed in the wardrobe for 25. I'm going to take it off if you don't mind, because I'm a little bit warm. Thanks, Sal.
Very good.
Thank you very much. I've got some stories I can't tell you, obviously, because I'm in a rock and roll band, and I don't really know why I got invited here, but I hope some of the things I have to say may bear some relevance to reason for being here. And so anyway, I grew up in a mixed kind of environment. I didn't really fit. I grew up on a council estate, And I was the only kid on the council estate that went to a private school. My mum and dad scraped to find the fees. And at the private school, I was the only kid that lived on the reservation, as they call it. And so I had to fight my way to the bus stop. I had to fight my way through the day at school because I didn't fit, and all the way home again. Pretty soon you learn to deal with that. And but you think that's the answer, is fighting, and it really isn't. So I started my first band and gathered a few like-minded souls, and we set up in our living room, in our front room, with an assortment of instruments. None of the guitars had 6 strings. I was playing drums on a biscuit tin with a pair of knitting needles, and we made a bass from a tea chest and a broom handle and a washing line, and we had a washboard as well. We got thrown out of the house within the hour, and so I went to the local youth club in Cranford and asked if we could rehearse in the storage room. And I said, sure. I said, well, we've got no money to pay for it. So he said, that's okay, you can pay by giving us a performance on Saturday night. So that was a challenge. My dad bought me a drum kit. Well, that's what he called it. And it was very kind of him. It cost £8, which was a week's wages for me at that time. The drum kit consisted of he got it in a second-hand shop. There was a Salvation Army bass drum, which is meant to be played like this, but it was resting there on the stage, looking very impressive. The moment there was any vibration, it just took off and rolled away across the stage and onto the floor. I had a little snare drum with 1 strand. It sounded like an angry wasp. And I had 1 stick, 1 brush, and a fantastic hi-hat mechanism, which was great. It went up, but there was only 1 cymbal, so it went up and down silently. That was very impressive. So I progressed, and there was a group of odd-looking people lurking in the corner, and I always know something's up when that's happening. And I got recruited into another band that had equipment and a Thursday night residential booking, a weekly booking. And they were called the Javelins, and we started doing rhythm and blues and rock and roll, and we started building an audience, and it was quite successful. Then we started getting some school dances and weddings and stuff like that, and that went on for a couple of years, and things were looking good. And one summer we had a full diary, and but the rest of the guys decided to take off for the summer, and so all the gigs were cancelled, and I was really looking forward to something a bit more permanent. So again, I started a little jazz band, and I again one week saw some strange looking people lurking in the corner, and I got recruited into another band called Episode 6. And at that point in '65 I turned professional. And things started moving pretty quickly then. We had a van, which was better than going to work on a bus with the equipment. And we travelled abroad after a while, and I went to Germany. And this is 20 years after the end of the Second World War. And I told my mum and dad I was going to Germany to work. And I don't think it's so long ago now that perhaps we don't remember what it was like in both countries at the end of the war, and memories were still pretty fresh. And my mum, I remember the look on her face when I said I was going to Germany, and So there was quite a bit of tension, and then she pulled herself together and came across and said something I shall never forget. Even in her state of anxiety, she said to me, "Try and make some friends." And it was a beautiful thing, and we did. We had a very hard regime out there. We would do 5 shows a night, 8 shows on Saturday, 8 shows on Sunday. It was hard knocks, and it was like a boot camp. But the kids there were the same age as us. And through Chuck Berry and Elvis Presley, Jerry Lee Lewis, and all that stuff, we had a great time. And we made friends, and I still have friends now in Cologne, Frankfurt, Hamburg, Munich. People who are dear friends who are still going, and some of them not very well. But we treasured that music was our common voice, and we had a lot of things happen during the years. No matter what the politics were between our countries and how things changed and developed, it was the same for us. We were just mates, we were just friends, and we still are. We don't really notice the politics, I'm sorry about that, but it doesn't affect us very much because we travel around so much, and we're just people, you know, we're just musicians, and most of us are. We don't move in those circles unless you get invited to something like tonight, which is wonderful, by the way. I'm having a great time, thank you. So, yeah, I forgot to mention that early in life, music's been a part of my life since I was a kid. My granddad used to sing opera. He had a wonderful bass baritone voice. My uncle Ivor was a beach photographer and a jazz pianist. He played boogie-woogie and stride. My grandmother was a ballet tutor, so we had Tchaikovsky a lot in the house. And I was a boy soprano in the church choir. And so when I heard Heartbreak Hotel, it was natural for me to move on. Sorry, my eyes aren't that good. Lurking people, skiffle, homemade instruments. Episode 6. I met Roger Glover in episode 6, and he taught me to stop fighting and start writing. And I learned to write songs, and in the early days they were the songs of young people. Fast cars, loose women, parties, alcohol, and all that sort of thing, rebellion, and all that kind of thing. As we moved on through life, things change. You can't write about those things all your life. And you do go through changes, not only physical, but mental changes too, as you progress. And so you write about different things, but it's still got to be interesting. We went to Beirut for 3 months. I remember getting off the Middle Eastern Airlines 707 at Beirut Airport, and I could smell the cedar trees. It was fantastic. We went to a village called Marmoltaine near Jounieh, and we worked at the Casino du Liban, which was on a par with Las Vegas and Paris at the time. They had massive entertainment with, no expense spared. We met some incredible artists, international. I saw some incredible things in the Bekaa Valley and in the estuary of what they euphemistically call the Yellow River in Beirut. I saw a lot of things while I was there, and not all of them did I understand at the time, but on reflection, we did. During that time, we had a manager called Gloria Bristow. I have to say that very carefully. Because in the I can't tell, can I? No.
Yeah, you have to tell.
No, I can't. Well, she had a nickname that was very similar, and Glorious Bristol was her name, her nickname. But she was a fantastic woman, a publicist, and gave good advice. Called me into the office one day and said, "There's been an offer for you from the producers of a record called Winchester Cathedral." I don't know if anyone heard it. It was Winchester Cathedral, yeah, da, 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 da. It was a session band, and the guy was on TV singing through a megaphone. Well, this was a huge hit in America, but as there were session players, there was no real band. And so they were putting one together for an American tour, and I was offered the job. £100 a week, she said. My God, I can never imagine so much money. I'll take it. She said, hang on a second. You know, there's something you've got to remember, that you will be remembered, as we all are, for the first thing at which you are successful. That's human nature. If you're an athlete, people don't like you to become a politician. If you're a comedian, they don't like you to be this or that. They like to see you as you are, and so if you do this, you'll be remembered for singing Winchester Cathedral for the rest of your life. Now, you've got two ways of looking at this. If you do something you don't really like and you become successful at it, it's not really a great feeling of success. If you fail doing something you don't like, it's an awful failure. If you succeed doing something you love, it's the best kind of success. And if you fail doing that, then it's not that bad because you love what you're doing. So I didn't take the job, fortunately, through her good advice. And sometime later I got another strange looking group of people hanging around in the back of the venue. And they were the 2 or 3 of the guys from Deep Purple, and I got the job there in 1969. And things moved upwards and onwards. Sorry about this. Then I got the Jesus Christ gig, which was very nice. I recorded Jesus Christ Superstar in a session for 3 hours. Remember Tim Rice and Andrew Lloyd Webber invited me around to their flat to routine the song, the Garden of Gethsemane, which was the opening track on the album. And Andrew was sitting at the piano playing with what I could have sworn was a pair of boxing gloves because it was so awful. And I was given the lyric sheet, and Tim said, well, he said, but I'd like you to, as it goes on, to improvise like you do with Deep Purple. And Andrew looked over his shoulder and said, yes, improvise, he said, but not too much, eh? So I ignored that. Now, where were we? Winchester Cathedral. Oh, thanks, Sally.
1983.
There we are. I saw my, yes, I saw my eye guide, my eye doctor. I have diabetic retinopathy, and he said, I'm not going to go entirely blind, but I should consider changing my name to Magoo in the near future. I've also had some fun experiences on the beach, but never
Black
mind,
Sabbath.
we won't go into that. Black Sabbath. Yes, I have been Jesus Christ, I've been in Black Sabbath, and I also played Charles Darwin, so it's been a mixed career. A mixed career. What's next, Sally? Come on.
1983, Black Sabbath, Disturbing the Priest.
Oh, this is a good story. We were in a studio one day at Richard Branson's Manor Studio near Oxford, and I looked up from the microphone and there was a vicar in the control room with his dog collar on. Intrigued, I walked into the studio. I said, hello, how are you? And he said, oh, very nice chap. I said, what can I do for you? It's a hot summer's day. He said, well, we're supposed to be having choir practice in the church across the road. And he said, I can't hear because you've got your door open and the music. He was so nice. He said, your lovely music is drowning us out. I said, wow, that's terrible. I said, well, shut the door. He said, well, it's too late. They've gone home now, but perhaps next Thursday you can keep the door shut. I said, absolutely. So you finished, you're not doing it? He said, no. And he said, I'm at a loose end. I said, well, I've pretty much finished. Do you fancy a pint? So we went to the pub across the road and had a lovely chat about music, and told him about my early days in the choir. And the next day I wrote a song called Disturbing the Priest, which was just a play on words. Move forward a couple of years, and I get a call from Al Dutton, my old tour manager, who's now working for Black Sabbath, and they're being run out of town, out of Mexico City. He said, you're not going to believe this. They're running us out of town. The show is cancelled. There's a mob coming down the street. Last night the Archbishop was on TV. He said, we've got to ban these people. They're Satanists, they're Antichrist, they're goodness knows what. And he said, and they quoted your song as being the example of why they're such terrible people. I said, what song? He said, Disturbing the Priest. I said, we were just having a pint of beer together. And I ruined his choir practice. So misunderstandings really can lead to all kinds of trouble.
1990, St. Pete and Hachkalar.
There was a wonderful border crossing. We did a tour that ran from, this wasn't with Purple, this was my own band, around about 1990, just on as the Soviet Union was packing up. We did a tour, we ran from St. Petersburg to Makhachkala, and we were crossing from Chechnya into Dagestan, and the driver said we've been instructed to stop on the border because there's going to be a welcome committee. And it was the village on the back road that we were crossing. And it was fantastic. There was the mayoress was there in a beautiful dress. And the local band was there. But their instrumentation was very similar to my first band that my dad bought all those years ago. And all I remember, there was a tuba, and there was a guitar, and there was some pipes of some kind. So I walked out, and they were playing their, I guess, their anthem of some kind, and they were so welcoming to our country. And the guys on the band, they're all on the bus, they're all drinking beer, and the bus is shaking from side to side with music. And so I thank you very much. And these guys will ride up on horses, and they offer me a bladder of wine, which I take a sip from, and I pass it back, and he's going, no, no, no. So I'm supposed to drink all of it. And so I do. And then the other guy rides up and he gives me some flowers, which are basically roses, which I grab, and then he reached down and squeezed my hand with both of his, and the thorns are still there, and I'm holding my hand, there's blood dripping down, and the roses are still attached to my hand. But it was a lovely welcome, and we ended up in Mahachkala, and it was the end of a sensational journey, in which I shall never forget. The people were fantastic. Some of them had never heard of me, but some had, and I was woken up one night in a hot hotel somewhere, and the room was full of women and children, and I had long hair. I was lying on a straw pallet, and they all went, ah. I realized they thought I was Jesus. Well, I kind of was really, in a way, but not really, if you know what I mean. And so I don't know what to say, but they all sort of backed out of the room. But these strange things have happened over the years. Anything else on this?
Afghan democracy.
Oh yeah, this is very favourite. This might be one of the few stories that's actually relevant. If you remember, I think it was 2004, the first democratic election in Afghanistan. This is just from memory. I saw this on TV. An English journalist talking to a very educated man on the streets of Kabul, and the election was just a week away. And she was saying, I'll paraphrase, she was saying, you know, are you excited about the election? He said, oh, we all are very much. It's the first democratic election in Afghanistan. She said, have you decided who you're going to vote for yet? He said, no, not yet. She said, well, it's only a week away. He said, yeah, but we have to wait for Uncle John. What Uncle John is going to tell us. She said, what's that? He said, well, he's the leader of our tribe. How many people in your tribe? So it's a small tribe, just 3,000 people or something like that. She said, so 3,000 people are going to wait until Uncle John tells them which way to vote. He said, yes, of course, it's always been this way, but for the first time, it's democratic. Thank you very much.